Hey guys, welcome to another Matt Talks session, and just before I start launching into my spiel about mobile games, I just wanted to actually just introduce the game in which you'll be seeing some gameplay in the background. It's called Trulon, the Shadow Engine. Of course, this is in full interest of disclosure, this is a review copy provided by Dietrich Online Services as well as the publisher, Kyy Games. Trulon, the Shadow Engine, is available on Steam and on Android and on iOS as well. So and you can imagine that's actually it. You can actually imagine that as a result, the control scheme is actually sort of very simple to play on PC, but it's definitely like you can just touch and tap and do things on the touchscreen fairly easily. And when I was doing my research and realized this actually got me thinking about mobile games, and I've always felt a bit weird about mobile games, mainly because it's to me there seems to be a very serious limitation on mobile games, in the sense that when you have a touchscreen, it really limits the type of controls that you can use, and as a result, also sort of limits what you can have in a mobile game that people can control using a touchscreen. So it's like, and I will just probably go through a whole bunch of examples here, which I know, I mean, if you don't know the mobile game, it's probably not going to be that useful, but in the least I will try and describe the kind of gameplay that it is. So, I think I should first at least just touch on some of my favorite mobile games, and for the purposes of this chit chat, I have mostly been using I've only used an Android phone, so I will naturally be, of course, referring to Android games that I either buy separately on the App Store or mostly through the humble bundles. So I think the only real one that really sticks in my mind is the Kingdom Rush series, and that's also because I'm a fan of tower defense games, and as a result, it's the way Kingdom Rush is set up is fairly simple to tap on the spot, build a tower, and then like maybe pause and then maybe use a spell or something, and it's fairly simple, it's fairly straightforward, and the control scheme is very easy. And I remember playing Kingdom Rush back in the day when it was just like I think it was like a really old Flash game back then. Either way, I've always just enjoyed similar tower defense games in that regard, so I suppose tower defense games aren't really like something that really has much of a problem on mobile, as long as it's still kept relatively simple. But of course, depending on the amount of micromanagement you need to use, then of course it gets a bit harder to really make that game work on mobile. So while you're watching through the gameplay, you will notice that or maybe in the least I'll point out that basically you can just do everything with the mouse the current gameplay that you're watching, and basically you can do everything with the mouse. So in the same way, you can basically just do everything with one finger on the touchscreen of your mobile, where it's just simply tap to a location, tap to select, and tap to select, tap and drag, and that sort of thing. And it's one of the things I've gotten a bit frustrated with mobile phones is that, or at least with mobile phone games, is that sometimes it's the lack of quality control or the lack of accuracy sort of thing. So again, I think the example I'm going to use for this one is the first one I'm going to use is Downwell, and Downwell is a really neat, simple game that it's very playable on both PC and mobile, and but of course it's a bit harder for me to actually do as well mobile as I could do on the PC using an Xbox 360 controller, because it's basically the mobile touchscreen is sort of it's not that it's less responsive, it's just actually harder to do well with it, even though the screen, the monsters, everything else is still the same. And yeah, I mean, if you got a few dollars, definitely check out Downwell. I can definitely recommend it, and it's definitely one of those games that you can just pick up to kill, like say 5 minutes or so, and only until you get really good, then you'll actually be spending a much longer time actually really trying to get through all the way down to the end. And for me, I managed to beat Downwell on easy mode using the floater guy. So yeah, I'm sort of just working on hard mode, but I'm just thinking, well, I should, now that I've beaten the easy mode, I should probably just move on to other games. But I digress. So basically, I'm not playing Downwell as well as on the mobile, but it still hasn't really like dampened my enjoyment of the game. But it is a little frustrating to see that I can't do just as well, because it's like my thumbs are really not sort of like adjusting to the mobile interface just as well as I would like them to. And of course, Downwell's got the problem in that the buttons are sort of a bit like you can't move some of the buttons. I would like to move like the movement buttons a little closer to the left, and that will make things a bit easier for me, because it feels like my left arm has to sort of reach a little more into the middle. But yeah, the other game that comes to mind is the twin stick shooter Crimson Land, which I've definitely done a video on before. And it's basically that, it's a twin stick shooter. So on the mobile interface, it's basically you using two thumbs, the left thumb to move your guy around, and the right thumb to point your gun and obviously shoot. So or even I don't remember what it might be. I'm just trying to think of the shoot. I'm just trying to think if you had to press a separate button to shoot. But even then, you can imagine it's already quite complicated. And as usual, I will always end up doing better on the PC with a Xbox 360 controller, as opposed to actually using like actual touch, using touch controls. And that's always sort of been my gripe about mobile games, in that I just the way that you have to adapt the controls to the screen really restricts like how much you can do with the game. And that's sort of being a general theme I've noticed with mobile games in general, in that they're like either very simplified, or like they're not really encompassing a lot of strategy, or not really encompassing a lot of like say micromanagement or finesse controls, because simply it's just not possible to do mobile. And that is completely understandable. And so it feels, I mean, now that I've come to this point of thought, as I talk, it feels a bit silly that I'm doing a video complaining about mobile games, when it's mainly due to reasons that mobile games can't really be the way I want them to be. So I've actually been looking into sort of like adapting, or like a specific controller for my mobile, and I sort of researched a few, but I haven't actually ordered one and tried them out. And but I do hope that you will at least make the gaming experience a bit better, at least for me. And of course, the other thing to think about is that the market that mobile games generally tend to cater to, I mean, you can imagine sort of like business professionals, or people on trains, or people who just play mobile games like on the train trip or on the ride to work, that sort of thing. They're the people who don't have time to sort of just like sit down on their computer and sort of like sink a good 2 to 3 hours into a good computer game. They're just people who have small snippets of time in between. Maybe, you know, they're out having lunch, and maybe they just want to distract themselves for a few minutes. Out comes the mobile, and you know, they're quite happy just to tap a few buttons, entertain themselves for those few minutes. And it's basically that lends itself to also a different demographic of gamers as well. And it's sort of like one of the things I've noticed is that what's the best way to say? It's sort of like they're not as involved. It's like, you know, it's like, hey, check out my base on what is it, Castle Crashers now? I don't even remember. But and then of course it was like when Candy Crush was, you know, all the rage, immensely popular, because, you know, it was just very simple to play, but you also had a lot of like mini things you could do that sort of just kept people really tied back to the game and addicted to it. And I mean I did play for a while, and then I was just like, you know, I just got really fed up with the whole, like, all the microtransactions, all the mini systems and such, and I just ended up uninstalling it. And I was just like thinking, well, you know, I could play better quality games than this simple match 3 stuff. But I mean that's not to say that Candy Crush is bad or wrong in any way, although definitely the company is sort of engaged in some shady practices. I think, what was it? I can't remember. They were the ones who were trying to trademark like the whole Candy Crush name, or was it the king name or something? I don't actually remember, but I can't deny that they've made a game that a lot of people enjoy, that is addictive and has and they managed to introduce new things that sort of keep the gameplay interesting and ongoing and that sort of thing. So it's definitely definitely something that they can be commended on, but and it's also sort of like say a reflection on how well they are good at. I don't want to say manipulating people, but that's the best description I can think of at this time being. So now I'm just thinking about some other mobile games that I play. There was one called Dynamite Jack, which was, it's kind of fairly standard puzzle type game, but it's just in a very different setting, and it's just to me it wasn't very interesting. And I first played it on mobile, and I just became frustrated with the controls. Basically the touchscreen controls. Another game that comes to mind is the Raiden. I've actually got like the pack that where you can play all the old Raiden games, and the control scheme is really frustrating in that you can only move the plane around by actually having your finger on the screen at the same time, and it's like when you move your finger the fighter goes as well, but of course that creates the problem that your finger is obscuring part of the screen, and that's actually like the part that gets me really cranky about mobile games. Well, not really cranky, in general I just feel a bit iffy, but definitely it just basically made the Raiden game unplayable because it was like, oh, I'm blocking part of the screen by a mechanism I have to use to play the game with, so I don't know. I mean, it's just it was just pretty much for that reason that I just couldn't enjoy it, even though I really like have this whole wave of nostalgia for the Raiden games. And for those who don't know what the Raiden games are, it's basically like you're a single jet engine, and then you're riding across a landscape and you shoot like a whole ton of bullets, and it's also like a bullet hell type of game, and you gotta dodge bullets, and then you gotta dodge obstacles, and and it's basically set in a very normal military background sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, just look up some gameplay. It's very iconic. You will recognize it when you see it, and I definitely remember seeing it on the arcade machines when I was like really young. So it's always really stuck. Like the image is always really stuck in my head for me. So yeah, I mean, I was excited to play it when I first bought it, and yeah, I was just put off by the control scheme. But what can you do? It's like. Thinking of another game now that it's for me at the time of talking about this, is being advertised a fair amount on several different parts of media by basically Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I remember watching some gameplay and I was just like thinking, well, that control scheme seems fairly easy, that it was just like not really all that interesting. So I'm just like, yeah, cool. Okay? I'm still not gonna play it. On other mobile games, there's like a popular one like say I'm pretty sure most people would be familiar with Neko Atsume, which is basically a very low maintenance mobile game where basically you have like this layout and you have to try and attract cats. And basically you can always just check in at random times of the day, and maybe you see a cat playing with a toy that you set out, or maybe you also have to set out food as well. And then basically there's rare cats that only come that when you only set out a certain toy, that sort of thing. So it really I mean, firstly it's popular because it's low maintenance, and two, it's basically full of cats. So, I mean, it's just like, oh, I'm just gonna pull out I'm just gonna open up Neko Atsume with some cute cartoon cats playing around with toys, and maybe take some pictures, maybe just buy some stuff, and maybe just improve my environment a little, and yeah, I mean, like, for me, I just lost interest as soon as I got the upgrade to the bigger room size, because it was like, well, that's it. Because like, I mean, in terms of games, I'm a guy who likes games that make me think. So it's kind of obvious as to why I enjoy Kingdom Rush or basically other tower defense games, because it's sort of like management/strategy. But on the other end, with something like Neko Atsume, where you just open it, you watch a couple of cats, and maybe you do a few taps and a few other things, and that's it. and yeah, I mean, after that, I just kind of just lost my interest in it. So, well, I mean, either way, to each their own. I know there's like, I'm just trying to think. I really wish I could remember the Clash of Clans. That's it. I've been seeing that advertised on TV every now and then, and look, I mean, it was like because I've seen it advertised on TV, I want to check it out, but it's also because I've seen it on TV that I can't be bothered checking it out at the same time. So it's like, yeah, okay, you obviously got the money to market it on Australian TV, so you know, you're probably making a lot of money. And I suppose the other thing that is pretty much a bit of a gripe about mobile games is essentially microtransactions, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't really like them. And there's like a general thing where it's easy to be like super stingy with your money, and you know, and you want to play games without spending money on them, like not 1 cent at all. But as a result, the game is tuned to essentially pay to win. Well, the term is pay to win, but it's sort of like, if you want to get ahead, you have to spend money, and it's usually quite hard to balance that kind of thing in the game very well, because yeah, I mean, of course, it's the currency, and then there's also the currency conversion, and then it's the other thing to think about is like whether the conversion of real money to the in-game currency is a reasonable amount, and it's one of those things that makes you think, okay, is it worth spending so much money for additional enjoyment of the game because one would like to, I don't know, sort of just like get ahead a little. I mean, one of the reasons that I heard like from someone like well, this actually came from Total Biscuit himself, was that basically for a person like him, since he usually doesn't have time to like grind, and to, you know, he doesn't have the time to invest in getting resources, getting better, so to him it makes sense to spend money to get ahead in a certain game, because he's not going to play for long anyway, and he still wants to sort of be able to explore all the content he has to offer. I think that's actually some pretty sound reasoning, and at the same time, in the same way that it's very easy to be really, really stingy about not purchasing mobile phone apps, I'm pretty sure most people, or at least some people, will be similarly stingy in not wanting to like drop money on a game, because, like, you know, maybe they will forget about it after a while, or they will lose interest in it after a while, and that's completely understandable. And I mean, that's just how it is. And I remember reading an interesting statistic somewhere, was that, or was it even a statistic? It was just a report that was basically saying that 1% of people who actually spend money on mobile games are basically the people funding the mobile games industry, because like maybe they're like really rich people who, you know, just spend they just spend a lot of money on these things because they can, and because they're rich. And even though it seems ridiculous, well, it's not our money to spend, it's their money to spend, and they are welcome to spend the money as they see fit, even though you may seem like ultimately pointless. But then again, I mean, one of the things I think about when it comes to money and enjoyment is sort of like, no, I was gonna say like how much enjoyment, but it was like, you measure the enjoyment, you measure the game length, and then it's sort of like, is that amount of enjoyment worth the money that you spend on it? So it's like, say for example, it's like, if you buy a $10 game that you end up playing for more than 200 hours, as opposed to say like a $50 game that maybe you just played through once, and maybe the whole campaign was about 20 to 40 hours, then you're done. It's like, okay, we can definitely measure it in time, but we can also measure it in terms of enjoyment, and we can also measure it in terms of like enjoyment versus like the quality of the game and that sort of thing. Because basically the games I'm thinking is like, you know, you get like a really cheap $10 game, like say The Binding of Isaac, for example, and that could give you several hours of playtime if you enjoy the game. and it's a very cheap indie game. It's not like a game that's made by a really big company like Activision or Blizzard or that sort of thing. But of course, when games are made by Activision, Blizzard, and that sort of thing, they obviously cost a lot of money because it's also the game, the IP, the franchise, and everything else that comes with it that you're also paying for as well. And even though it might cost more and you might get a little out of it, it's also sort of like the value of the franchise itself. So that's definitely just one of those really interesting things to consider, that if you do consider them when you purchase games, is or at least when you read reviews, it's like people say, I really enjoyed this game, and I spent more than 200 hours on it, and it's only $5. It's definitely worth your time. And some people would like to view it in terms of basically, like, if I pay X amount of dollars, I get this amount of gameplay, and not really think about how long it takes for you to enjoy it. No, sorry, that didn't come out right. And not think about how much you enjoyed it, that sort of thing. So it's like, well, I've gone through the examples already, so you kind of know what I'm talking about. But yes, certainly it's tempting to measure games in that kind of objective manner, and I think it's fair, even though it may not seem overly fair to some developers and some of their games, because it's like say for example, sometimes a developer makes a game that is like, it's supposed to provide a profound quality experience, but in a very short amount of time. But it's like, say, $20, where some people would be more tempted to just. Where some people would say if it was much cheaper, like say $5, then I would definitely consider buying it. And then it's a toss-up between like, it's a toss-up between like knowing the experience, or how much the experience really means, or how much people really enjoyed it, and whether you trust other people's reporting on that same thing, kind of thing. Yeah, it's a tricky thing to think about, but it's definitely a factor that some people take into account when they purchase certain games. It's like, recently I just bought Enter the Gungeon because basically some of the YouTubers and streamers I watch have really enjoyed it, and I've watched some gameplay. I think I will enjoy it as well. And I've gotten a bit tired of The Binding of Isaac and Our Darker Purpose, which is a very similar game to Binding of Isaac, just set in a very different environment. It has a few different features, and so it's like, it's probably time for something different. So yeah, Enter the Gungeon is the next game that I do hope to sort of just eventually record and play and do some videos on. But wow, I just remembered that I was meant to be talking about mobile games. So while we're on that topic, it's actually like, when you think about it, mobile games are actually quite cheap. Like, you only spend a few dollars. And that actually might be another thing that sort of just contributes to sort of like the cheapishness of the game. Maybe no, I'm basically sort of just touching on like the lack of quality in some of these mobile games, because it's like, why invest all that time if so many people are only going to buy it for X amount of dollars? And then, of course, the like say with mobile games, you've got the problem of the mobile market being very, very competitive, and lots of ideas being ripped off by, like, say, Chinese developers. And it's like, you can put up a great idea for, you can build a game, you can make a great idea for it, and then it's like, maybe some Chinese developer will rip off the idea and make even more money than you, because maybe they have the better exposure, or maybe they have more marketing. So it's definitely one of those things that's sort of a bit about the mobile game industry, and quite frankly, I don't. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to make a mobile game because you enjoy it, but it's like, if you go into the industry and you're trying to make a mobile game or a mobile app for a living, is, at this stage I'll be like, might not be worth your time, that sort of thing. But it's a bit hard. It's a bit hard to say, and since I'm not like intricately familiar with the industry and how things are, I mean all that I've said just then is just basically stuff I've read online. So I'm just regurgitating stuff. So it's definitely not so easy for me to say, but it's definitely not something I plan to look into at anytime soon. So yeah, well, looking at the timer, we're closing on 25 minutes, so I think I'll round this off soon enough. So yeah, this is so the gameplays of Trulon. I quite like the music. I quite like the unique nature of its card aesthetic. I like that it's got no microtransactions. Like once you buy the game, that's how it is. There's no microtransactions. There's no additional stuff. There's no stuff that's missing. You get the full package as it is. And but I will say that its target audience is probably not mid 20s people like me. It's probably younger children, maybe basically think children, like who can think a bit of strategy, who are not that stupid, who can think through a bit of strategy, who can read a bit, and basically children with maybe iPads or Android tablets that just want a very simple RPG mini strategy type game just to play around with. So yeah, this is Trulon, the Shadow Engine, and thank you for listening to me ramble about mobile games and going off on tangents for the last 30 minutes. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next video.